So I called Marco up the other day and asked him if he would like to have a little chat about 60s psychedelia, because this is something that we're kind of both pretty much into, and one of the first things that kind of like established us on our journey of collecting, maybe. But I did notice over the time that we have kind of fairly different definitions of psychedelia. So I wanted to kind of like ask you, if you had to define psychedelia to a layperson, 60 psychedelia specifically, how would you define it? What makes that,
Now looking back, and to simplify it, to get the basic idea, I would basically say it's experimental music.
Yeah.
It's music that, which is experimental, and I think that was a huge shift in the mid 60s. If you look at the charts around the world, between 60 and 65, pretty standard 2.5 to 3 minute songs, chorus verse chorus, pretty basic. And then, all of a sudden in the second half of the 60s, there's this sea change that continues on in the 70s and has never stopped ever since. Yeah. But basically, I would just say it's music with a fun of experimentation.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah.
So a lot of these sort of mid 60s and even late 60s acts, they would wear a colourful shirt and to somehow grab onto the coattails of this psychedelic movement which was happening at the time, or to look cool, or that's what the marketing men thought would be good for them,
Yeah.
So, and I think when it comes to, because I would say my psychedelia is probably on the poppier side than yours. Mm-hmm. Your psychedelia is from what we've always discussed, is pretty a lot more obscure and can sometimes go into the dark realm. Mm-hmm. For me, I was always more, the thing that I associate with, certainly the things that perked my ears up and that I was hearing as a kid before my memory even is there, would have been psychedelic pop stuff. Mm-hmm. So I grew up in Australia. The radio of the time, I mean, if a song's from 67 or 68, if it's 75, 76, that song's less than 10 years old. So it still would have been being in the ether, a lot of that music. So, things like, and I think this is, it is that borderline psychedelia that we discuss. It was like, I've got some stuff here, and I picked out just some singles, which on the surface of it, for me, I would say built a foundation for deeper, harder psychedelia. But if you're 5 or 6 and in the 70s, you're hearing Nancy Sinatra.
Yeah.
And the songs that she did with Lee Hazelwood, the stories in them. Yeah. There are certain psychedelic twinges.
That's true. Yeah.
Even some
very, very heavy use of reverb in the Hazelwood stuff as well.
Yeah.
So I mean, because there's something inherently psychedelic about an unnatural reverb, which I personally love.
Things like that, which on the surface, it's the poppiest side of psychedelia. It was your top 10 hits,
Yeah, exactly.
Things like, the Walker Brothers, Sun Ain't Gonna Shine Anymore. Yeah. Not inherently psychedelic, but, when you hear that orchestration and it just, oh my God, and the way it's recorded and mixed, it's I would certainly put that in a psych, and that was music that was just, you heard, it was on the radio, if you noticed it or not. Yeah. One I distinctly remember hearing, going to work in the 70s, going to school. My dad would drive me to school, have his radio station on, and you would hear Windmills of Your Mind from Noel Harrison. And even as a kid, I loved that, and I fell in love with it again as an adult. One of my favorite karaoke sessions was singing Windmills of Your Mind.
Yeah.
On top of that, then, the Monkees.
Yeah.
Which again, you heard them, it was on the radio. And very importantly, it was the culture of the time. It was the TV shows that you watched. So I don't know how it was in Britain in the 70s or early 80s, but in Australia we had a lot of late 60s, early 70s American TV shows and kid shows. And so I'm talking things like HR Puffin stuff, Sigmund, the Banana Splits, Sigmund and the Seaweed Monster. Beautiful little shows, wacky little shows, and sort of fits into that definition of experimental but fun. Yeah. You know?
Well, we because me and Marco spoke about this on the phone.
Actually, we should make. I'm Marco, and this is Marcos.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's confusing.
I even wrote that in one of the descriptions one time. The Kiss video. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we talked about this on the phone earlier on, and it's like when you look at kids' TV shows from previous decades, you had the feeling, and actually, if you look at the credits. It was often comes down to an individual, an eccentric, with a story to tell, with a passion for making shows, and in many cases they look cobbled together because they didn't have a budget, and then as time goes on, things get written by executives, and they lose that kind of feel. Same thing with the music industry. So. Those shows inherently had a kind of cobbled together quality, a rough edge to them, not perfect sound, not perfect visuals, which added to this kind of feel of surrealness somehow. They feel lo-fi in the sense of everything's a bit wobbly and everything's a bit shaky. The animation is a little bit off, but that adds to this feeling of something organic. It's really hard to describe, but you have like that kind of what do they call that kind of animation, which is
stop motion.
Stop motion, yeah, this kind of stuff. And then the soundtrack itself sounds wobbly, like it's played on a warped record player, has a lo-fi quality, and that always sounded kind of put me in a little bit of a dream state somehow. I remember they used folk music quite a lot on those kind of shows. Like, so one of those shows had like a banjo playing. But even the folk music had a little bit of a psychedelic element, maybe because of that warped lo-fi nature. I don't know what it was, but it stuck with me. I would say like in my early teens, before my teens, I was listening to bands like Guns N' Roses, Iron Maiden, stuff like that, which I still love to this day, without a shadow of a doubt. Then I kind of got introduced to, bands like Nirvana and the Pixies, and I'm definitely lent more towards bands like the Pixies and that kind of.
But you were grunge guy. Did you get into any of? I mean,
for sure, but I wouldn't. Just indie generally. Yeah. I like the indie scene. You know. But it wasn't until I remember one day I was sitting in a chapel, at the school chapel, you know what I mean, with a friend, Carlos Albertini, at the back of the chapel, and he gave me an earbud to listen to what he was listening to, and I remember it was The Gnome by Pink Floyd, and it kind of blew my mind because it's hard to explain, but something so simple and childlike, and yet had it struck something inside of me. I didn't think like you could get away with listening to music like that and still be cool somehow. And the thing is like The Gnome itself would never turn out to be my favorite Pink Floyd song, or my favorite song, but it was the springboard, because that same day, I went and bought a tape of Relics. Okay. And when I put on Arnold Layne, I think I must have played Arnold Lane 20, 30, 40 times in a row. Like the sound of Arnold Lane just blew my mind. Like everything was perfect. The organ riff, the reverb drenched vocals, the over Englishness of Syd Barrett's pronunciation, the whole feel of it was so alien to me, and yet at the same time it felt like this is what I've been looking for. That sound is that has redefined what I need to get out of music. It just blew my mind, and it started me on a thirsty, hungry quest for psychedelia that kind of sounded like that early Syd Barrett, Pink Floyd. And it never stops, because you never stop uncovering stuff.
But, you know, then friends come into the equation as you get older, and they fill in gaps. You know, have you heard 13th Floor Elevators? No. You know, and then you hear You Gotta Miss Me, and goes, oh, I know that one.
Yeah.
You know, because it's popped up somewhere. But then you hear the story.
What was the movie with the record collector guy?
High Fidelity.
High Fidelity.
Yeah.
The 13th Floor Elevators popped up in there.
Yeah. And then it just takes on another level, you know. And then I remember a friend of mine had a mixtape, and it had Count 5 Psychotic Reaction.
Oh yeah,
I'd never heard it before.
Yeah.
And it was on Paul Reed's mixtape, and I still remember it was purple, had great songs on it, and it was like instant love.
Yeah.
You know? It's
I think I found that one on also a compilation, but wasn't it? Was it on Nuggets by any chance?
yeah, it was.
Yeah, that's where I heard.
Yeah. And all those Nugget songs, you know.
Oh yeah.
And it's funny when I think of I Had Too Much to Dream Last Night, you know, Psychotic Reaction. A lot of these songs, Night of the Long Grass from the Trogs.
Yeah.
I can never remember. I just remember those songs always being around.
Yeah.
You know, it's like they were just songs you heard, and then at some stage they registered, and you go, oh, what band is that from? You know, it was like, I just know the song, but like, what's the actual band? So yeah.
Hey, going back to the Monkees, because you introduced the Monkees as like a psychedelic band somehow. Because this is interesting. Like which of the Monkee songs for you would you consider to be psychedelic, or do you think, or do you mean like the Monkee sound in general is like a psychedelic sound?
Well, I think it's another one of those great examples of, I mean, that they were a corporate event, you know, first made band, TV show and all of that. Now, you know, although the original music was just good pop music, not necessarily psychedelic, but the image that they had, the show, I don't know if you watched the TV show or if it played on English TV.
It did, yeah.
Played a lot in Australia, so I watched it a lot. And I would say the show was more psychedelic than the music.
Yeah.
You know? But, you know, if you're 6 or 7 and all of a sudden you're not really making that differentiation, it's like, okay, that's great. It has a psychedelic sense. It's packaged in psychedelic wrapping paper. They're wearing cool paisley shirts, which I love to this day. So, you know, I also would say, the Monkee psychedelic, certainly at times. But, you know, I'm a believer, those big first mega hits, it's just good pop music, but packaged in that psychedelic bow.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that's interesting, I think, because that's where, like, when you talk to people that collect or at least have a passion for psychedelia, there's often those times where you think, like we have a different perception of do you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Because like for example, for me the only one that strikes me as psychedelic from the Monkees would be the Porpoise song.
Yeah, well, that certainly is
do you know what I mean? Yes. And then like, because I love Look Out, Here Comes Tomorrow, so I love some of that stuff, you know. But definitely for me it would be pop. Yeah. But like you said earlier on, even I love words, but again for me kind of a pop ballad.
Yeah.
You know. But you know what would be really interesting? Like, what would be your, like, if you had to not explain psychedelia to somebody, but show it to them, like what few songs would you choose to illustrate that? Do you know what I mean?
That's an easy question. Mm-hmm. Because that says everything.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
The sound of it, you know, it is the first use of the term, the psychedelic sounds of.
They were blatant about it. Yeah.
Well, and they were the original. I'm sure, you know, let's go into music history. There's other bands doing amazing stuff and psychedelic and all the rest. But you know, they were trailblazers, and you know, they had their hit. They were on the worst record label of all time, and they were a totally dysfunctional unit with a useless record label. Their story's great, but there's no definition required. I shove that in the hand, look at it, read it, listen to it, and you'll be able to tell me about psychedelia after the 35 minutes of listening to that.
Yeah, that's actually not a bad choice because and very unique as well. Like I couldn't compare it to. There's a 13 Floor Elevators have a signature sound that I couldn't compare to somebody else.
And it's more than just that.
Yeah,
the jug. I mean, the jug's amazing.
Yeah, there's something about, like, it's almost like a bubbling guitar. I can't quite describe it, but it sounds like the guitar is coming out of the speaker in bubbles.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Look, you know, and they're the beautiful descriptions you get when you talk psychedelia, you know. But yeah, that would be the defining one. I wouldn't have to say anything. Just there you go, bang.
Yeah.
But of course, you know, it goes off, you know, and it's now at the stage I'm at now, and you think, wow, you know, psychedelia never ends. There's modern psychedelia. There's many genres and offshoots.
Was it King Gizzard, the Lizard
King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard?
Yeah.
Australian band, great. You know, there's a whole bunch of modern bands, and they take it in whatever direction they want. Again, I think that fits into that definition of it's pop music or, you know, commercial music with a love of experimentation and not standing still.
Mm-hmm. I would say my earlier life was definitely a big part of it was a quest for the ultimate psychedelia. Something to kind of like, I don't know, like, and I think that the closest I came to that would possibly be the Jason Crest with Black Mass.
Okay.
I can't quite put my finger on why, but it's something. First of all, you've got that kind of like rough, growly vocals that you get from kind of like the garage bands. Mm-hmm. You know, like the Chocolate Watch band, the Seeds. You know what I mean? But then you've got that backwards guitar that sounds composed. Like, it sounds like they wrote it forwards to play it backwards so that it sounded right when it's played backwards. Yeah. Then you've got like the chanting, like this kind of almost like kind of, what would you call it? Like cultish chanting, you know? And then you've got the laughter. Like, it's the best laughter I've ever heard on a record in my life. And the cool thing is right at the end of the song, the laughter, it just sounds like manic and insane, but the laughter even drifts off into its own melody and just becomes a melody at the end. The theme as well, the dark theme, like, I wouldn't say darkness is a theme of psychedelia, because it definitely isn't. Mm-hmm. Actually, psychedelia is often very, very light, but it goes deep into the mind. But Black Mass by Jason Crest, there's definitely lots of others now by the Paisleys. Oh my god, like they're just a constant reverberation, and that's a trippy sound.
Yeah.
It's just trips you out, you know.
Yeah, for me, it always goes back, you know, if I think about psychedelia, it's just the images in my head.
Yeah.
Before I even think about the music, is the lights, the go-go dances, the parties, the you know, sort of the acid test sort of images. They're the things that straight away jump in my head, even before the music, and then I'll add the music to the pictures in my head.
Yeah, yeah, that's interesting, because I don't that collective, that kind of like the public psychedelia that you talk about here, like the images, like let's say the Austin Powers image.
Yeah.
When I think of psychedelia, I'm very far away from that. I'm kind of like, it's more of a solitary experience. Do you know what I mean? Like getting into the depths of the mind in solitude, and more of a lonely sound, like a band playing in a chasm. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's also interesting. Like,
it's, I think basically it was like, you know, I grew up with the commercial, what was around me. So the commercial side of it wasn't even psychedelia. It was just the pop culture that was around me growing up, which I still love, and which still influences me in musically, fashion wise, the things I read, the things I watch. I enjoy that. I like the colors, you know, I love colors, you know, so I've always been, generally a pretty positive, sunny sort of a dude. So it makes sense that, you know, it's like, hey, I'm going to go for Good Vibrations, Beach Boys. You know that's gonna get me. You know, that the Monkeys and Porpoise song will be something that'll grab me. You know, I love, you know, now looking back, I love finding, it's like, oh wow, this psychedelic Elvis song. You know, because it became a commercial product, so everyone had their attempt at doing something psychedelic, successfully or not.
Yeah, and actually some of them are surprised. Like, oh my God,
they're often really good.
Eric Burden's psychedelic phase, like Orange and Red Beams. Orange and Red Beams is one of my favorite psychedelic songs from Eric Burden. Like, and 2 albums. Was it when the twain shall meet, and I've forgotten, like Sky Pilot, Monterey, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But holy shit, like Eric Burden did good psychedelia.
Yeah,
Orange
absolutely.
And Red Beams, you know.
Yeah. Well, you know, even there's one Elvis film, and you know, grew up Saturday matinee Elvis films if they weren't Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis. So lots of Elvis films. There's one Elvis film, and it's the film that has a little less conversation in it. And it also has this song called Edge of Reality, which is the psychedelic song. Love it.
From Elvis?
Yeah.
Oh, I haven't heard that.
Oh, yeah. It's a bit orchestral. It's in there. And you should check out the film, and I can't think of the name. I keep thinking Tie Me Up, Tie Me Down, and it's not that. But it's like a little bit more, a little bit less, or something like that. But it was, I think, his second or third last film, 68, something like that. And he has a trippy dream sequence.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And that's where he's playing this Edge of Reality song, which is great. You know,
that's so weird. I haven't heard that. I'm going to check that out today. Actually,
I can play you the single.
Yeah.
But you know, and that's always been the side where I've taken it from, and you know, it's always been meeting other people, more friends that have been in, that's like their psychedelia, and then they've, you know, it's like, oh, okay, have you listened to Captain Beefheart? You know, let's have an evening where we just listen to Love. You know, all of this stuff.
See, now the names are coming out. Like, these are the names actually. Yeah. Captain Beefheart, Love. These are the names that helped to define my image of psychedelia. Electricity, Abba Zaba, the Red Telephone. I mean, oh my God.
Yeah. I mean, you know, and again,
gorgeous
psychedelic imagery, you know, which was, you know, that could have been a promo shot for a TV show in 68, 69, 70, 71, you know. That's how that, I mean, yeah, psychedelia was just commercial. You know, it was Sesame Street. It was kid shows by 69, 70, 71. You know.
Do you remember Ren and Stimpy?
Oh, yeah.
There was an episode of Ren and Stimpy where, like, Stimpy's playing with his belly button. He disappears inside of his belly button. And when he gets in there, like, it's this psychedelic world, and there's this, like, really cool psychedelic song about, like, I don't know, like, I remember something about lemonade guns, whatever the hell it was.
Yeah. I still find that the spirit behind psychedelia is still the foundation to a lot of the music that I still look for and love. You know, in the 90s, I remember a friend of mine came with a cassette. Well, even before that, 1980, again, before I knew what was what, B-52's Rock Lobster.
Oh, yeah.
And there's psychedelic elements because psychedelia, you know, it was a weird song, you know, they're doing the noises and the noise of the different animals and fish. But the imagery again, you know, with the beehive haircuts, I loved that. I remember being as a kid, I loved the song, and I loved their look.
Yeah.
You know, I just always went for the colours and people having a good time. You know, they look like they're fun. Yeah. I never went for the people that looked like they were having issues. And wanted to tell me about them. I'm in the other corner of the party.
That'd be more my stuff, actually.
You know, but that's it. You know, and it still forms the foundation. And you know, in the 90s, a friend came with a cassette, and I'd never heard of this band, the Flaming Lips. It was 93.
Oh yeah.
And you know, he came with this record, "Hit to Death in the Future Head." This was, you know, before they became a very popular band later on in the piece, but they're psychedelic. It's their version of psychedelia, and it's American and it's brash and it's loud, but they're having a lot of fun. It's a wicked vibe, and it's not straight ahead. They're experimenting, and you know, it's not going to be everybody's cup of tea, but for me, it was like perfect. It was like, who are these guys?
Yeah, it's interesting actually. Like now I think back. Bands like Mercury Rev, Grandaddy, they kind of fit a little bit that psychedelic mold.
Well,
somehow.
Funny you say that, because I would put them in the Flaming Lips family. Certainly Mercury Rev, Phil Donahue, not Phil Donahue, he was a talk show host, but I think Donahue, he was a member of the Flaming Lips at one point.
From Mercury Rev.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah. But you know, so in the 90s, you know, it never stopped. It morphs into different things. It always does. And bless it, you know.
Yeah.
And every now and again, some band will come across and just smack me over the head and be like, new psychedelic wizards. Love it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Swedish band Goat. Been around now for a good 10 years. Brilliant. And then there's this Japanese band that I saw recently in Munich. Kikigaku. God, I always forget. I normally get their name wrong. Kikigaku Moyo. And, you know, they're along with Acid Mother's Temple from Japan, and they're these psychedelic wizards. You know, and Japan's got their history of psychedelic music.
Nuggets too had a lot of Japanese stuff.
Yeah. I mean, from the 60s stuff, the Mops, which I actually have up there. But, you know, there's a whole bunch, you know. There's great Latin psychedelia and African psychedelia.
Latin? Yeah. Okay. Nah, I was just thinking, yeah.
Yeah, because it was everywhere.
Psychedelia in you mean Latin America?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, not
the
peyote.
No. Mind you, like the Electric Prunes did Latin Mass.
Yeah.
That was actually in Latin, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's, you know, it's still the things I enjoy in music.
Yeah.
You know, and then there's I love a good psychedelic, man.
You know what's, you know, let's go to emotion, because the thing is we might differ a little bit here in terms of reasons for listening, but like, for example, I hated being a teenager for the most part because it was just horrible fucking time. For the most part, you know. And psychedelia and the whole, like, kind of, let's say, the drug culture that went with it, it just provided a point of escapism, and it could take me out of my mind when I couldn't get out of my mind in another way. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So, like, that would be, I mean, if you could do both together, it was a perfect combination. But if you could only do one, then it was, psychedelia is pure escapism for me. The sound, it just kind of takes my mind, like folk music, I love it to bring me down to earth. Okay. And give me this feeling of belonging to this world, which I don't often feel that way, you know what I mean? But psychedelia does the opposite. It kind of like just pulls my mind and takes it somewhere else, and I can just walk obliviously and let that sound just carry me. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. But how is it for you?
There are songs, again, all things that when I was older, as a kid, it was just a good song to jump around to. I wasn't a philosophical, introspective. I'm not that as an adult. I certainly wasn't that as a kid. Yeah. But then, you know, we had in the 90s, me and a friend, you know, we would meet up and we'd just listen to music all night.
Yeah.
And we'd generally have most of the lights off, might be a few candles on. And I remember he had like speakers. Like it was just a bog standard 90s stereo system, but he just sort of gathered speakers over time, and all of a sudden he had like 6 speakers all connected to this one thing. And we, you know, he would always get music sent over from England, or we found new stuff, or there was something we were into, or there'll be some book with, you know, if it was Kraut Rock or whatever it was. So we listened to a lot of music there, and that friend, being a little bit older than me, also had, you know, and he was big into psychedelia. So he was saying, you have to listen to this. This is, I've heard this is good. So he was, and you know, that's where I could close my eyes in a dark space, generally with the right, you know, requirements needed for an evening like that, and you know. And that's when I fell in love with an album like Forever Changes.
Yeah, yeah.
That's when I fell in love totally with Captain Beefheart.
Yeah.
And you'll be played again.
Yeah.
You know, play it again. The Forever Changes lyrically is where it really...
It's outstandingly original.
That's where it gets me, and that's where it got me. I remember... it sort of freaked me out.
Sitting on a hillside watching the people die.
And I remember it being that line and that those lyrics being in my head for good songs can often get in there, and because they're good songs, I quite let them have their party in my head as long as they want.
Throwing away the key. I wonder who it'll be tomorrow.
You or me.
Yeah.
And yeah. I loved, and those sessions, we used to call them spiritualization sessions, because one of our big bands that we would listen to at the time was spiritualized. Psychedelic also in their own way. But yeah, those sessions, that was when I, you know, really became sort of one with a lot of this music.
Yeah.
And really lost myself in it. And great memories, you know.
Absolutely.
To listen to constantly being introduced to new music, which not just new, but also sounds different and different lyrical concepts, and just like for 4 hours being in a dark room with a friend with the same interests where you can discuss it. Oh man, that was fucking great.
Yeah.
Or, you know, exactly. Did you hear that on that speaker? No, you know, that's when it took it on a different level, and that, you know, that was also when, you know, we start going into Kraut Rock, which, you know, psychedelia based as well.
Which of the Kraut Rock bands would you consider to be like the most psychedelic in that sense?
Again, probably for you, I'd say Faust.
Aha. Okay.
You know,
I'm not really familiar with them. That's something to check out.
You know, it's a rain. Even I've played you this song. I know at various points, but even the title, "It's a Rainy Day, Sunshine Girl."
Yeah.
You know, I love that title. It's a great song. It's just one beat constantly banging around with melodies coming in and out. Gorgeous. Yeah. But yeah, I think you would enjoy Faust. But then again, how could you not enjoy Noi and Can?
Yeah.
And I mean, the ambient stuff isn't my thing, so I've never really got into Tangerine Dream that much.
I haven't really approached them at all. There was some kind of semi-electronic stuff that I found. There was a band called Mellow. I think they were a French band back in the late 90s, early 2000s that released an album called Another Mellow Summer, based on an album called Another Mellow Winter. And they had some Shinda Shiva. I remember that song sticks in my mind. Very, very psychedelic. Which is the best song that you've tripped to? You like, so it doesn't even necessarily have to be psychedelic, because the trip will make any damn song psychedelic. Yeah. But what's your best tripping music?
I've loved some Velvet Morning from Lee and Nancy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Yeah.
Some Velvet Morning. I love that.
All right.
And Nancy works well. Summer Wine is I had a great experience in a tent in Somerset when we were following Ken Kesey and the Merry Pranksters around England in '99.
Yeah.
A very psychedelic week. And I remember I made mixtapes for the week, lots of them. And, so that one, it was just a nice moment.
Yeah.
It was a nice moment that I always look back on. Glass Onion from the Beatles.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I remember a particular Sunday morning post Saturday night. Often there'll be songs that I know quite well, and all of a sudden you're in some state and you put it on, you go, oh my God, I'm hearing that totally differently.
Oh, yeah.
And that will blow you away,
yeah.
So that I really enjoy.
I think for me, the most unpleasant one was probably several species of small furry animals gathered together in a cave and grooving with a pick from the Ummagumma Pink Floyd album, because it's not a song that you would listen to have a pleasant experience anyway. It's just an experimental. It's cool, but it's but that was deeply unpleasant at that moment. But the most memorable, the one that just lifted me up to another dimension, and I don't know why, actually, to this day, it was a live version of Spirit of the Age by Hawkwind, a 1979 live version. And I didn't even know much about Hawkwind at that time. Friend put it on. It was kind of like towards the end of like everything being crazy and that the Spirit of the Age, that and I've listened to the original, just didn't do it for me. There's one very specific live version, and at that moment it just took me, it just gave me such a thrill, a buzz, and kind of elevated my spirit. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yes, definitely.
Yeah. And I don't know, like that, for me, that's what good music does. It improves your well-being. It's a soundtrack to your life that you have control over. You are able to pick and choose records that define your existence, or they become the soundtrack to your existence.
Oh, most definitely.
And psychedelia is for those moments where you don't need to be grounded.
I want to
anymore.
DJ my funeral.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Oh hell yeah! I force people to sit there for 24 hours and listen to and like curate a really cool playlist and say you're not leaving until you've heard all of these damn records.
Exactly.
And if anybody talks, a big ghostly hand's going to come out of the sky and give you a slap.
Yeah, no, that would be, portable record player, get some singles out, No, certainly. I mean, and that's the beautiful thing about music. It's, and we always have a song in our head. Mm-hmm. There's always something accompanying whatever we're doing.
Oh, yeah. So, Marco, I'm going to really put you on the spot here. 10 Desert Island albums.
In psychedelic.
Let's ish.
Psychedelic-ish.
Yeah.
Well...
And let's narrow it down to that mid 60s to early 70s.
Yeah.
Kind of period.
Well, I mean, 1, 2, 3, right there.
That's in
Pink Floyd,
too,
Pipers at the Gates of Dawn, Forever Changes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I get goosebumps just thinking about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, this, and I would choose Easter Everywhere as well.
Yeah, that's a good choice. Yeah.
I would take 2. 34 Elevators, 10 albums is pretty good, so I would certainly take those 4.
The Svandells, definitely not psychedelic in my book, but fucking amazing.
Yes,
amazing.
And I wouldn't. This wouldn't be one of my 10 Desert Island Dicks, as much as I love and am so happy to have this. But that was that garage, garage stuff, which I loved just as much as the psychedelia, and in many cases and with some bands is nearly you nearly can't. It's the same, kind of thing, it's a similar thing. But I wouldn't call this psychedelic at all. But I would actually call this. If they're a garage punk album, I'll call this garage punk soul. I mean, this is a soul-y record. Yeah. And it's fantastic and magnificent. I love it.
It's gorgeous. Yeah.
But look, on a good day, if I'm thinking psychedelic and something a bit weird and something out there, this 3-piece is fantastic. And on a good day, they would certainly make a top 10. Mm-hmm. Because with this, I would... there's enough poppiness inside there, probably to last me. There's poppy elements there, but you've got a French guy, an Iranian guy, and a Belgian guy releasing one album in '69, and it's
cool.
It's fantastic. I love it. There's a great energy to it too. That's one I would take with me. Then I would take some modern-ish stuff. I would choose a Flaming Lips record because I love them, and I would probably choose this one, maybe Transmissions from a Satellite Heart, which has the She Don't Use Jelly song on there. But I do like this one. It's fantastic. Hit to Death in the Future Head. It's very rocky as well. Yeah. But it's warped. I mean, as opposed to, if you can say, is it psychedelic or not? Well, it's warped rock. That's psychedelic enough for me. I would bring...
Safe as Milk?
Yeah, well, that's exact. They're going, is it got to be Safe as Milk, Decals, or Trout Mask? Which of those 3?
Oh, fuck. I mean, for me, 100% Safe as Milk. But to be honest with you, that's just because it was Yellow Brick Road, Abba Zaba. They're the ones that made Electricity made me fall in love with Beefheart. But honestly, I think Trout Mask Replica. Oh my god, Trout Mask Replica is would be a lot of people's first choice actually.
Big time.
Above that one,
big time. And
is that was one with Beetles, Bones, and Smoking Stones. Or is that another? Nah,
because there's sort of one. It's the final song, which is sort of the most song-based tune on the record. The other ones are more soundscapey,
kind of disjointed.
Yeah,
kind of thing.
I know, because 10 albums is something. I might choose Trout Mask Replica because if it was one, you wouldn't drive. You'd be mental to take that one. It would drive you insane if that was the only record you could bring.
Oh, you'd come back very disturbed. Yeah.
But yeah, if it was 10, I would bring that with me. Then I would have to bring some psychedelic soul or funk, because I do like my soul and my funk.
Yeah.
And so then there's a good chance that this one would come out with me on my island, or maybe a Sly Stone.
Yeah, I was about to say
Stand,
yeah.
or There's a Riot Going On. One of those two, most likely.
No George Clinton or anything. No Funkadelia.
Oh my God! Jeez, yeah. No, see, I'll choose Funkadelic in front of Sly. Sorry, Sly. Because those first three, Funkadelic first album, Free Your Mind and Your Ass Will Follow, and Maggot Brain are just so mind-boggling. I love those records.
Great titles as well.
Wow, and great covers. So, skip Sly, and I'll take 2 Funkadelics with me.
Yeah.
2 out of the first 3. I'll be getting close to 10 now. And I would probably choose 1 or 2 other modern psychedelic bands. Let's say I'll bring Goat and another one.
Yeah.
Surprise choice. That would be it.
It's a really tough question, actually. Like I'm not sure if I would be able to answer it. I did.
No compilations allowed?
Compilations would make it really simple, because like, what would you put in there? Like some of the Pebbles series, like some of the Nugget series.
Oh, you bring the first Nuggets.
There was one
landmark.
I had on record ages ago, and I don't remember what it was called, but I remember it was my introduction to Kaleidoscope, and the opening song on it was a song, Flight to Ashia, or Flight from Ashia, from Kaleidoscope.
Okay.
And it was such an amazing psychedelic compilation. Like you felt, when somebody's just throwing a compilation together to shift some units, and when it's been passionately curated.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
And that was one of those ones that I felt like whoever put that together, they were... It was almost like it was designed for me. It was answering my prayer of like, hey, where do I start now? Like I don't even know where to begin. Point me in the right direction. I got Pink Floyd. Now where do I go?
Yeah.
And Kaleidoscope, Flight from Ashia, like, nobody knows where we are. This kind of haunting, repetitive refrain was perfect.
Yeah.
What else are we missing there? Because I mean, let's be honest. Like, Their Satanic Majesty's Request is a really good shot at psychedelia from a band that has nothing to do with psychedelia.
It was a blues rock band, yeah. Look, 100,000 Light Years from Home and She's a Rainbow.
Yeah.
2 of my all-time favourite, and side A, side B on the single.
Yeah.
2 of my all-time favourite Stone songs.
And I don't know. I would say we have to put in the Velvet Underground and Nico.
100%. 100%. I mean, again, a great band, and at a time of Summer of Love and a time of the most drippy, sugar-coated psychedelia, they come out with that.
Yeah.
And, probably your first, that's you're going down Jason Crest territory, and that opens up the gothic or the dark side of psychedelia. It opens the door to that.
Exactly. Oh my God! Like, that's the weird thing. Like, that was Venus in Furs. Isn't that pretty much the first goth song? I mean, for me, like, it's so original. Nothing before it, nothing after it has ever sounded like Venus in Furs. Nothing ever. In fact, that whole album. That's the really weird thing. That's why. It pays to be original, because you can sound like your contemporaries, you can sound like your peers, and you will be forgotten en masse like your peers. You'll be part of a fashion scene, like, you know what I mean? I was thinking about this recently, like somehow we don't want to get left behind, so we want to sound like our peers, we want to imitate their success in order to be part of the moment, so that we get considered, we get looked at as part of what is relevant now. But actually what is relevant now is very quickly irrelevant. And so why not work with the idea that you don't need to be relevant for now. You want to be like you're writing for eternity. You're writing for the angels. You're writing for the unknown. You're writing for. Do you know what I mean?
That's the great creative artistic conundrum. Mm-hmm. That doesn't matter if it's music or an artist or a painter or whatever. It's, am I going to follow a trend? I can probably make more money, or am I going to do something passionate which might be out there and
everyone's going to hate at the beginning.
Yeah,
yeah.
The Van Gogh story. And even, if you talk about the Velvet Underground, would they have even got a record contract, take away all the ties to Andy Warhol?
Well, actually, yeah.
67, making that music.
Yeah, that's true.
And I was reading something recently where, because Verve is a jazz label, mm-hmm. And that was released on Verve originally. And the labels were interested because you could buy a piece of Andy Warhol art.
Yeah.
And that's the way Andy Warhol went to record companies.
Okay.
So so every person can buy their own Andy Warhol artwork.
Yeah.
And there's music in there.
Yeah.
And you get to peel off the banana if you.
Yeah.
Shouldn't though. If the ones that didn't, they've got the more expensive record now.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
But that was how the Velvet Underground, found their footing back in the day. I would say that in 67,
mm-hmm.
Because it always spins me out that album came out that early,
yeah,
and it wasn't 68 or 69.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, be it a psychedelic Elvis song, be it Captain Beefheart or the Velvet Underground or some artist I haven't heard or seen yet from somewhere in Africa or South America, and I'm sure there will be.
Oh, but that's the other thing, isn't it? Because we've talked about like English spoken psychedelia.
Yes, absolutely.
As soon as you get into the rest of the world,
oh my God,
there's a lot of
there's
crazy
fantastic stuff from Latin America. Just brilliant psychedelia from Latin America. As a kid in kindergarten, I used to love the original Batman. And, of course, who doesn't like the original Batman theme song? Mm-hmm. So, as a kid, I used to run around going, no, 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 no. And in my kindergarten, we would have, there would be tires lying around to play with. There was also, which is irrelevant to this, but there was also a rusty old car. Mm-hmm. It was a real rusty car. I mean, they even took it away. They even realised in the 70s that wasn't safe. That you shouldn't have 4-year-old kids playing with some rusted car. But I remember we would. And that was one of the things, like a jungle gym in our kindergarten was just a rusty old 1968 Ford, know. But yeah, I'd run around with these tyres with my friends and we'd play Batman and Robin, and our Batmobile was the tyre. So you'd run around slapping the tyre around to make it roll. You'd run after it going, no, 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 no. And it's like, that's already the first song. That was like the first song I fell in love with. Mm-hmm. And it sort of makes sense because it's driving, kitschy 60s Batman. For me, I would put that under psychedelia as well. Just, again, the colour, the feel, the vibes of it.
Oh, God, you just reminded me of something. 1963. Imagine the first time you ever hear the original soundtrack to Doctor Who.
Oh, yes. Oh.
And I heard the way they made it, because there was something to do with there was no polyphonic synthesis, or it was like the sounds were made by cutting up pieces of tape. Mm-hmm. And you can look this up. Like how did they make the original Doctor Who soundtrack in 1963? But oh my God, it's just from another world. It's something else.
Absolutely,
you never heard those sounds at that time before.
Well, firstly, what electronic music was made. So, I mean, you are talking about the very first steps into the world of electronic music right there. And that the very tentative steps throughout the 60s from various bands and artists. Mm-hmm. But something that's become so enduring now for 60 years. Mm-hmm. and still sounds wicked.
Yeah,
You know?
exactly. And then that kind of reminds me of like Bruce Haack. He was a guy that had what was the name of the album? Like Electric Lucifer or something like that,
Good
1970.
name. Okay.
And you have like the vocoder. You have like it's purely kind of electronic driven themes and well, biblical and demonic and all the rest of it. But it's an electronic album essentially in 1970 and psychedelic, by the way.
Yeah,
They're very psychedelic.
I think if you know, there's the Silver Apples.
Oh yeah.
You know, so what their two albums were 68, 1970, something like that.
My most sought after album for my whole life that I couldn't find the original of was Dr. Strangely Strange Kip of the Serenes. And I wanted it based on Strangely Strange but Oddly Normal, which is this, I think you would call it twee.
Okay.
Because like it's kind of like inspired by the Incredible String Band.
Okay.
But Incredible String Band are on another level for me. Incredible String Band are perhaps one of my favourite bands of all time and will never ever get boring because nothing sounds like them. Nothing in the world sounds like them. But yeah, Strangely Strange but Oddly Normal was just had everything that at that time when I was a teenager I wanted. I thought that album's going to be so damn cool, and finally as an adult I got it. Many years later when it was reissued. Just a massive disappointment.
Really?
Like, yeah, but like I think it was just because I built it up so much in my head. Like possibly if I hadn't had that so much anticipation, I would have kind of like appreciated it for what it was. But it sounded so art schooly to me, so too much pretensions. And I might be wrong about this. Like I might.
Well, that's how you feel about it.
No, but do you know what I mean? Like maybe later in my life, like maybe I can listen to it again and maybe I feel differently about it. I still love that one song.
Yeah.
But the album as a whole was like a massive disappointment. It's not like Wee Tam or the 5,000 Layers of the Onion or the Big Huge or any of those string band albums that are just, oh my God. This sounds like this music just fell from the sky. Somebody just dropped this. It fell off of a comet, and this is incredible. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, and then when that happens, you know that they're those moments.
Yeah.
That stay. You know, you always remember that moment.
Yeah.
And you know, it's so weird when because you know how much music do you listen to it's been around you your whole life, but you haven't tuned into it. And then you get to that moment when you tune in, you go, oh, fuck. Mm-hmm. That's wicked.
Oh, yeah.
You know, you know, and then you start getting interested in it. Mm-hmm. And that was, you know, growing up and from between, you know, getting into the late teens and in the early 20s, where that happens a lot because, you know, taking more notice. And it's like, oh, fuck, I've known that song forever and a day.
Yeah.
But I've never, you know, listen, Beach Boys was like that with me. They were, you know, soundtrack to your, you know, to your life. I mean, you know, they've always been around. You always hear a Beach Boys song. But then a moment in time came and it was like, I feel like buying I'd never bought a Beach Boys record. And it was like, oh, okay, I don't want to buy Pet Sounds. I know that's the cracker, and that's the classic. But I want to get the Smiley Smile, the big Mistake album, the one that didn't, you know, didn't turn out.
Like the original one, but the one that they released kind of like, yeah.
No, the one that they came out, Smiley Smile. So not Smile, the one that didn't get released.
That's the difference. Yeah, exactly.
And so I remember getting Smiley Smile. And you know, it's had Good Vibrations on it.
Oh yeah.
And so you know you can.
Oh, and Heroes and Villains.
Yeah, exactly.
Like my favorite Beach Boys song of all time.
Oh yeah. And again, you know, then all of a sudden I was just totally tuned in, or you were hearing things. It was like I've listened to Good Vibration my whole life, but now I understand this symphony thing.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah. I love those moments. Those moments are great.
Absolutely, yeah. And the cool thing is they never run out, because like you can't be alive long enough to dig through the mountain of amazing stuff that has yet to be discovered.
That's it.
Do you know what I mean? It's like
not even stuff that's not yet made. You know, there'll be great stuff, new stuff made in the future and being made now, but just the plethora of music that that the last 100 years have brought.
Yeah,
it's wonderful.
And what a time to like if you're just growing up now, if you're a teenager now, you have like what 120 years of recorded music to listen to,
and you've got access to it.
Yeah. You don't even have to pay for it. You don't have to deliver papers for from 5 to 8 every day to pay for this. Like you can get it. Like, you know what? That is a gift to be able to just switch that on and have that right in your ears whenever you want it. It's so amazing. Like, that's a good time for people right now.
It's all there, and and you can all listen to it, which is great.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a never-ending and wonderful journey.
Absolutely, yeah, and you can, like I said before, you can use it to. It's the soundtrack of your life. You can pick and choose. It doesn't have to be something prescribed to you from commercial radio stations. It doesn't have to be something prescribed to you from influencers. It doesn't have to be something prescribed to you from the Spotify recommendations list, or anyway. Like, you can curate the soundtrack to your life and make it a damn good and interesting one from 120 years of recorded music.
Yeah.
So how do we close this now? Maybe we don't need to.
I think we pretty much have.
It just fades out usually anyway.
Well, why don't we just take a shot of that album and then fade to black?
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah.
No, so if I do that, try to do it so it looks decent.
Okay, go. Yeah, that'll do.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all right. Cool. Nah, good one.